Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
So I'm pretty upset we weren't recording just now because Sally unironically said, I don't want your pizza mat. Not like pizza, comma, mat. Like pizza placemat because I ate a pizza over a placemat. You may be wondering, does Emily only eat pizza?
Yes.
The answer is right now, yes. So fuck off.
I left the cabinet open.
Every time. Our marriage is falling apart.
You're a mess.
Oh. Can I tell you something?
Yeah, I'm scared.
Well, you should be. It's very intimate, so it'll just have to be between you and me and our 7,000 listeners.
Okay.
I know we don't have 7,000 listeners right now, but I'm counting on in April of 2026, after the world has ended, and podcasting is the only medium that exists anymore for people that will definitely have 7,000 listeners by then. You know, the 7,000 people who have survived. Yeah.
EHR is the only podcast that made it through the apocalypse.
Okay, here's what I want to tell you. It is that there are 4 sequels to the American classic Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. No. And I would like to tell you about each of them.
Okay.
I can't get through it. I can't do it again. I'm not strong enough. Okay. The second book in the series, but chronologically the third, is called The River.
Stupid. Listen, Gary Paulsen, you're not fucking Dostoevsky. Why do you have to do plot shit?
You may be wondering, what's this book about? He survived the thing that happened to him in Hatchet. Mm-hmm. He did it with only a hatchet, and then he got back to civilization.
No, he only has a river.
And it's like, what's he gonna do? He's in civilization. Why would he go back into the wild to continue the adventure? The answer is that the government asks him to. He's 15. The government is like, we need you to teach us your survival tactics.
Okay.
And Brian's like, yeah.
His name's Brian?
Yeah, his name's Brian.
I kind of always just imagined his name was Hatchet.
And he's like, okay. Yeah, Brian, quotation marks, Hatchet. Robeson is his last name, which I know only because I'm looking at the Wikipedia plot summary.
As we speak.
Yeah, so they're like, hey, can you teach us your survival techniques? And Brian's like, yeah, I'm patriotic as fuck. Caw, bald eagles. For sure. Yeah, let me teach you how my ways of surviving. And so they're like, great, here's some supplies. We're going to give you only this man named Derek. He's a government psychologist. And it's like, what's the use of him? Did you, a psychologist with your PhD, learn how to survive in the wilderness? And also, why isn't he teaching the military dudes?
Confused.
It's very confusing. But don't worry. As soon as they get out into the wilderness, Brian is like, let's ditch all these supplies because it won't be an authentic survival experience unless we legitimately only have a knife.
Okay.
And the psychologist is just like, okay, sure. But don't worry. Then he's struck by lightning. Not Brian, Derek, the psychologist.
Does he die?
No, he's in a coma. And Brian's like, shit, this dude's gonna die if I don't get him down the river. It's the river in the title. Don't worry, he lives. That's the end of the book.
Okay. It's an interesting plot concept.
The third book came about because people read the first Hatchet book and were like, hey, Gary Paulsen, I have some issues with this. First of all, he only survived because he got that, thing in the plane that, like, signaled to people who could come and rescue him. And it's like, they were like, that was Deus Ex Machina. He never would have survived the winter. And Gary Paulsen was like, hold my hatchet. Of course you fucking would. He's Brian. He's unstoppable.
The unstoppable 15-year-old.
I think he's 13 in this one. He's 13 in the first Hatchet book.
No, in the Hatchet books, he's 25.
He sure... What?
No 13-year-old would survive in the wilderness.
He sure is. This is called Brian's Winter, but it could also be called, also known as Hatchet, Winter. Anyway, so this book is like, what if Brian didn't do the thing? It's an alternate history book. What if Brian didn't find the radio at the end? Here's how he would survive the winter. His activities include constructing a winter shelter, building snowshoes, being confronted by a bear, befriending and naming a skunk, and learning how to make a bow more powerful.
Okay.
He does all that. So that's technically the second book in the series.
What does he name the skunk?
I don't know. The Wikipedia article doesn't
Emily,
say.
that is important. I can't go on until you find out what he names.
Well, fuck,
the
I couldn't
skunk.
even find a summary of the fourth book, which is called Brian's Return. Here's all that it says about in the Wikipedia summary. Sally's about to die. She's literally about to die. I'm losing her. She's flatlining. Here's the plot summary on Wikipedia. It's short, don't worry. Brian is having trouble fitting in with urban society and is sent to see a psychologist. A blind ex-police officer named Caleb. No, it's a different psychologist. This series has 3 characters. Brian and the 2 different psychologists. One is named Derek, the other one is named Caleb, who's a blind ex-police officer.
Okay.
Caleb recognizes that Brian's home is the wilderness. At Caleb's suggestion, Brian returns to the Canadian wilderness, knowing that is where his heart truly is.
It's called Trauma, my good bitch.
Which makes it sound like a romantic comedy or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fucking? He's just like, gotta go back. I can't fit in high school anymore. All these hormones. Teens. Auditions for Romeo and Juliet. Math tests. No.
I have to go fight a bear.
My passion. No. It's ironic you should say that, because guess what the 5th book is about?
Him fighting a fucking bear?
It's called Brian's Hunt. It's about him hunting down and presumably killing a bear.
Why would he do that? What did the bear do to him?
It's vengeance. Apparently the bear got a family that he knew or something, which is shocking because I didn't know there were any other characters he knew.
So literally the 5th book is about a family getting slaughtered by a fucking bear.
No, I think it happened earlier in the series.
Oh my god. What?
And then Brian's like, gotta kill that bear. That particular bear. Somehow he distinguishes between them. To me, I think they kind of are all pretty much the same.
It's not like great animal welfare attitude.
What? Oh, no. Like, just how could you hunt one particular bear, you know?
Maybe he smells funny.
That's certainly
I bet
theorem.
he smells like the dead family. Maybe he stole the mom's hat or something and is wearing it around the Canadian wilderness.
He's, like, draped in the, like, floral scarf
Yeah.
and he took off the corpse of the mother
corpse of this family's mom. And he's like, ha, fuck you, Brian.
The bear's just like,
yeah, this is my beautiful fucking scarf. And then the bear has a crisis of gender identity, obviously.
good for the bear.
And
Honestly,
she discovers
I only
her
read
real
the
truth.
Wikipedia summary and I was already like, I'm kind of rooting for the bear.
Yeah.
Like, what, Brian, why?
Yeah, why are you killing a bear?
Anyway, that was what I learned today. So this is everybody.
Today, I learned that vultures cool themselves off by pooping on themselves. That's what I learned today. Emily just got up from the table. She's laying down. There's a lot of weird energy going on. She left her phone here, though. I'm just going to take it.
I hate it.
I'm going to take pictures of myself.
On my phone?
Yeah.
That'll be a good one for social media. That was me being the bear. Brian.
I wish you had a scarf on.
Sorry. I do have some scarves I can go get. Okay, anyway, this is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally Goodger. I was dying during that Hatchet cold open because it was the worst, but also because I'm sick.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
So apologies for my noises.
That is okay. We are here to talk, not about Hatchet, but about The Shadow Rising, which is an equally...
No, Hatchet's worse.
You think?
Yes. There's a scene where he has violent diarrhea on the beach.
Oh, yeah, you always have to remind me of that.
Because it's horrible.
I don't remember.
Do you guys want to know the 2 book scenes that traumatized me the most?
Well, that's one of them.
The Hatchet diarrhea scene. 2, the scene in Aragon where the dragon's like, I should have a say in who you fuck because we're emotionally linked.
Yep, those are the 2.
Don't fucking forget that happened. Someone put on the page the dragon saying, I have a stake in this.
Well, like a 19-year-old boy from Montana, because that's how old he was when he wrote Aragon, or the sequel, or whatever it was called.
I can't remember if it was in the first or the second one.
He was
Inheritance?
No, I think it was in the second one. Because I remember that scene. It's when they're in the mountain.
Yeah.
And they only get there at the end of the first book, but then he only has a sex drive in the beginning of the second book.
The second one's called Eldest.
Yeah, because at the end, you find out, spoiler alert, that one dude, Murray, what's his name? It starts with a Mur. He's actually Aragon's older brother.
Who is?
The other guy. The edgy guy. I don't
remember.
I don't remember.
I remember he had a cousin.
Yeah, who has a Perrin-like arc.
Yeah, because he's just like, I'm so horny for my wife.
And he's like a blacksmith or whatever.
Yeah, and he's like, in my village.
Yeah, and he has to save his village by rising against the government or something.
Whatever, man. Whatever. Anyway,
Speaking of Perrin.
Stupid podcast.
Sorry. Sort of call us.
We're supposed to be smart in this episode.
Sally whipped out a whole shit ton of notes, and I was just like, fuck me, right? I didn't even read the chapter. I read the summaries, and I do remember this one pretty well, I think. But this is chapter 2 of The Shadow Rising. I think it's called Whirlpools in the Pattern. It is where we are not introduced to bubbles of evil, because technically that happened at the beginning of the Great Hunt, you know, when the wind pushes Rand into Land's sword almost. And almost the Dragon Reborn was impaled at the beginning of the second book of this series. Would have been so fucking legendary. But no, this is the first one that happens en masse, I guess you could say, and also is later sort of defined by our more scholarly characters, like Moiraine. But we get a point of view from each of the boys, Perrin, Mat, and Rand. They're all doing separate things in the Stone of Tyr when it happens, and it kind of manifests itself as like little symbolic manifestations of their fears. So, for Perrin, guess what that could fucking be? Oh, it's his axe and it wants to kill him. And it's like, dude, it's only book 4 and I'm already so tired of this. So boring. But, Perrin's scene, which is the first one, as I recall, he's just with Fael and they're chatting / flirting / being their kind of obnoxious hetero selves. Fael's like, we gotta get out of the tower. And Perrin's like, oh, my beard's itchy. And also, I can't leave the tower because I'm bonded to Rand or something. Sorry I keep calling it a tower. I know it's a Stone of Tyr. Okay. But I think of it as a tower. Do you think of it as just like a giant rock?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think of it as like very squat.
You think of it as squat. I think of it as like a tall...
I guess that makes sense because
like
they have
cliff.
to climb it. Like, I understand that it would be like tall, but I just think of it as like boom.
I think of it as that, you know, in Minas Tirith, the like cliff thing that Denethor jumps off of.
Yeah.
I think of it, it's just that. Just like a giant fortress
just
of
a
that.
Cliff.
Well, like that general shape.
Okay.
With like
that makes
windows.
sense. That's kind of how I think the tower. That's how my brain kind of imagines the tower. Because the tower to me has so much height.
Yeah.
And the stone just seems to have more like of a blocky presence.
What we've learned here is that you can be Robert Jordan and spend cumulative pages describing buildings, and still they will be open to reader interpretation.
My problem is that I don't read descriptions of buildings because
I think that's smart of
I
you.
think they are boring.
Well, they usually are. It's like, it's a building. To go on. Like, fuck me, right? Are there any necessary attributes of the building that I will need later on?
No.
Exactly. The Stone of Tyr, as far as I know, is just a rock, because nothing happens on the outside that's interesting once Matt blows it up.
True.
Okay, anyway, Perrin is like, Fail made me grow this beard because she says I look really sexy in it or something, but it's mostly just itchy and I don't really get it. I feel like I just returned from a study abroad in Norway, kind of pretentious, and like I just want to read everyone my beat poetry or something. And Fail's like, but it looks really sexy. And Perrin's like, fine. That's my boner.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, please, we have to leave because this place is whack shit. And Perrin's like, I concur, but also I can't leave because I'm pair bonded with Rand or some shit like that. And then his axe attacks. Axe attacks. I want you to take this scene and imagine that instead of an axe, it's just Axe body spray.
No. Why would you hurt me like this? I
'Cause
can
it's way more
smell
funny.
it. I can literally
Perrin's like,
smell
get out of the room, it's gonna kill you.
I fucking hate you.
Fail's like, no, I can fight. Perrin's like, you're not strong enough. And this will define the inherent sexism of our relationship for the rest of time.
True.
Like, I can't say I wouldn't also push out loved ones in a room or an axe was coming to life, but I don't know. I don't know if that would be my primary concern. Mm-hmm. The axe coming to life would sort of occupy my, like, the gray matter of my brain, my little gray cells, as Poirot would say. I'm sorry, I'm so manic right now.
It's okay. I just haven't seen you like this in a really long time.
It's like it turns on every time we record.
It's just like really fuck wild.
I promise I'm a calm person when I don't have a microphone in front of me.
You're being very funny. I like it. I just wish they could also see the way that you're moving right now.
That's it, guys. This is about to become a vlog. What's a vlog?
Okay.
You take over. I can't because I forgot the word for video.
Okay.
Video killed her.
I'm gonna vomit.
Seriously. Oh my god. My contacts are gonna pop out because I'm crying. Ah. Do you have anything academic to say about this scene?
I have quite a bit to say about this scene.
Do you want me to get through all of them and then we'll go to the academics, or do you want to go scene by scene?
Sure, give us the sprinkles, Emily. Sprinkle Matt on me.
Oh, I would love to. It's like waving, it's like dollar bills, you know, and you just like bathe yourself in them.
I would love to bathe myself in Matt-cathone.
Yeah, Matt is in a dimly lit room, I imagine, with a bunch of drunk dudes. It's like the most obnoxious setting that I can picture.
Yeah. Literally, for some reason, whenever I read this scene, I literally just think of Matt being like in a hallway.
Really?
I don't know why. It just reads as this like energy to me that they're just like fuckos who just like set up a table in the hallway. I
picture
don't
it like
understand.
A basement in a frat house. They're all sitting on faux leather sofas.
Yeah.
The card table is just like sticky because of the beer they've been drinking. Mm-hmm. All the Coors Light that they've been consuming. Blech.
Gross.
Exactly. I don't know anything about alcohol, but I know Coors Light is bad. Right?
I mean, I've never had it. I have dignity.
Oh, see? There are the connotations of Coors Light. Anyway, Matt's playing cards with these 5 noblemen who I checked on Wikipedia. One of them will be dead by the fires of heaven, and the other 4 will more or less become military leaders in the Band of the Red Hand. Which is pretty interesting, considering Matt's disdain for them throughout this entire sequence, that he would then allow them to become military leaders. But I'm also betting he didn't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
He just was kind of like, okay. And according to Wikipedia, they all do fine at it. I mean, some of them are idiot. The one who's like a super idiot, Matt just constantly pairs him with a commoner dude, Darrid.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like, this dude's a fucking idiot, but he does listen to Darrid, and that's all I can ask of him.
Yeah.
But they're all just chatting. Most of them are kind of subtly complaining about Rand. Yeah. They don't like how he's, like, imposing all these rules on nobility. Like, whoa, that's wacky. We should be able to do whatever the fuck we want. And Matt basically is like, okay, I'll kill you all right now where you stand, because I'm Robin Hood. Like, obviously you guys should be held accountable for your dumb actions. If you take advantage, if you rape a woman, then I hope you get hanged.
Yeah.
Fuck.
This is what a feminist looks like.
Yeah, he's like, fucking go, Rand.
Yeah.
I, who hate Rand, now support him against you assholes. Mm-hmm. And they're all like, oh, this is awkward. And Matt's like, gotta bring it down.
Gotta bring the mood back.
So anyway, have you guys heard about a kinky game called Maiden's Kiss?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, what the fuck? And he's like, it's where, well, first of all, I was conned into it by Ruark, who thought it would be hilarious. and it was. Ruark, master prankster.
Yeah.
Matt apparently goes up to the Ale maidens and is like, hey, want to play Maiden's Kiss? And they're like, fuck yeah, we do. We want to put our spears around your throat, and then you have to kiss all of us, and if it's good, we'll ease up, and if not, we'll poke you or something.
I know.
Are those the mechanics of the game?
I think so.
There's some implication that he ends up in a threesome with Bane and Chiad.
Yeah, there's like, some implication that, like, some sex stuff goes down.
And it's like, kissing. Okay, did Matt lose his virginity between book 2, 3, and 4? I mean, I guess he did.
I feel like Matt has lost his virginity before this point.
You think? They all just read like such country bumpkins that I also sort of kind of, because of who I am and the setting I was raised in, I read them as like teen boys from Utah County, which by necessity means they're all huge virgins.
Yeah, I don't know, Matt. Maybe it's just that Matt has such like comfort around women and sexuality that it just always struck me that he, sometime in book 3, by then is like having sex on the reg.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I want to know the story of whatever village gal or guy was like, yeah, I'll sleep with him, the village idiot.
Wouldn't we, though?
Yes, 100%. Anyway, Matt's like, yeah, there was some sex stuff, and he gets them all laughing, and it's all very funny. Then he's like, oh, dang, I've got a really good hand of cards, because it's all the face cards, more or less, the kings and queens suits, and it's various rulers. I think it's the Amerlin seat. There's one who kind of looks like the Queen of Andor. Mm-hmm. I don't remember.
Various.
Like a king of some kind. And suddenly, all the little faces in the card kind of crawl out of the cards, sort of like cardboard cutouts stand up, and they're in miniature this entire time, right?
Well, they start in miniature, and then I think they get bigger.
Yeah, and they just like start throwing knives at him. Yeah, because various weapons.
Like the Amerlin's holding the flame, right? And he looks down, and he's like, "Oh, she's holding a knife," and then little tiny card stabs him, and
he's like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. I always think of that scene, like any of the scenes at Night at the Museum, where you've got the little cowboy and Octavius, or whoever it is.
In love.
It's Octavius, Mary.
What? I don't understand.
Sorry, I'm having a moment. Our family used to quote that line all the time, but we've, like, forgotten about it, and I just remembered it. In Night at the Museum, the main guy is Larry, and he, like, is talking to Octavius, and he calls him by the wrong name, and the little guy's like, it's Octavius, Mary. Sorry. I don't know why I think that's so funny. God, this is gonna be a treat to edit. Anyway, it all happens extremely quickly from what I remember. It's like Matt kind of reels backward, and the cards start coming to life, and then Matt, like, knifes them, and then it's just, like, over.
Yeah.
They're just, like, cards on the ground with knives in them.
Yeah, compared to Perrin and Rand's scene, Matt's actual encounter with his bubble of evil is extremely quick.
Just, like, over like that.
In terms of word count, at least.
Yeah, that's true. And all the noble people are like, bah. Well, that was fun and awkward. I didn't see anything, though. It's all good.
Start drinking.
Yeah, they're all just a bunch of alcoholics who are like, this is fine. Weirder shit has happened in the Stone of Tyr. This guy I'm playing cards with blew up the Stone of Tyr. Yeah, not 3 months ago. 3 weeks? How long has it been?
3 hours ago.
Super unclear.
Yeah. Well, it's been at least 2 weeks, because Perrin's got his beard growth of 2 weeks, I think.
Oh, does he say that explicitly?
Yes.
Let's say it's been a month, because we'll say it took 2 weeks for Fail to convince him to grow a beard. It's being very generous with Perrin, but...
It would take Perrin 2 seconds to be convinced to do something that Fail wanted him to do.
It's
been a month.
It's been between 2 and 4 weeks. Anyway, both Perrin and Matt, after this happens, are like, ugh, Rand. And Perrin's reaction, I think, is to kind of go off looking for Rand. Matt is kind of like, I just gotta get out of here. So he sort of pieces out.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we switch over to Rand, who has nothing to do with it. He's in bed having a sex dream. Because, of course, he is.
But, like, the most vanilla sex dream.
Yeah, but, like, literally, it's...
all time.
Yeah.
I don't even think in his dream he sees them naked.
Yeah, it's just the implication that he might see them naked.
Although, but, like, how would you have a dream about seeing someone naked if you've never, like, seen them naked? You know? Like, wouldn't your brain, like... I'm sure your brain would, like, fill in.
Yeah, I think
or, like,
you just...
cut away.
Subconscious, right? Surely he's seen... You think he's legitimately never seen a woman naked? I can't...
Yes.
Yeah, I can't think of a... It's
not
like porn isn't accessible in fantasy land unless there's, like, some dude in Camelin handing out drawings of naked women.
I mean, there probably is.
Like the little flyers in Las Vegas.
Yeah, because, like, isn't that a thing of, like, vintage, like... Not vintage porn is, like, different, but, like, I feel like there's been collections of, like, erotic drawings of the ages past.
I mean, yeah, in the Middle Ages, you had to get your rocks off somehow, but you probably actively had the plague, so I don't know.
I mean, hey,
you were covered in leeches.
Can sometimes help you feel better.
Yeah,
like,
that's
releases pain. Yeah, so just because you're chronically ill doesn't mean you don't want to have sex, Emily.
I'm just saying, if you're covered in leeches, would you be like, no, seems
maybe
like,
that's like, yeah. Maybe that's your thing.
Don't yuck your yums.
I'm not gonna yuck your yums. Anyway, why don't we have a character in Wheel of Time who makes their living drawing porn?
Because Robert Jordan was a coward.
Could you imagine if one of our main characters...
It would be Val and Luca. Are you kidding? Like, imagine the circus, they all get there, and it's also, like, secretly a sex thing.
Nice.
Like, it would make so much sense.
It would make so much sense. Welcome to Val and Luca's wonderful
circus.
World of sex.
That would just make it so much funnier. When Elaine and Nynaeve join the circus, and suddenly he's like, so what do you do? And they're like, oh, we tightrope walk. And he's like, no.
What do you do?
Is it, like, bondage? Like, what's the...
Yeah, like, what's going on here?
What's your game? And they're just like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And then...
And he goes...
Someone walks out dressed like a dog.
No, and he goes... And they're like, oh, circus stuff. And he goes to the circus people in the dead of night and is like, you guys, they have no idea. And it's so fucking hilarious. I'm going to keep it that way.
Amazing.
Lin-Manuel Miranda is delivering these lines, obviously. Yeah. And all the Baz Luhrmann stuff is going on. It's fine. It's all great. Anyway, yeah, Rand is, like, having a creepy dream about women trying to control him, and that becomes women in a river that he's like, oh, they're maybe naked. Min and Elaine, I think.
Yeah.
And then Edwene comes in, and she's, like, angry, and Rand's like, no, Edwene, don't worry, I wasn't looking at their titties. And she's like, it was a betrayal of the heart, Rand. And then the dream ends.
Jesus.
And he wakes up, and who should be in his room but Bear Elaine in, like, scantily, like,
in lingerie,
a negligee, basically.
Yeah.
What a fucking, like, how did she get in?
She literally is like, I told the Ale outside that I'd been summoned by the Dragon Reborn, and the Ale were probably like, this is gonna be fucking hilarious.
We're like, okay, we thought he was gay, but...
Yeah. They're like, can't wait to watch how this goes
Gaul
down.
Personally,
yeah, was like, go right on in.
You just... No, she didn't have to say anything. He was like, get in there.
Yeah, he's like, get yours.
I
wish I was.
Babe.
Yeah.
Awesome. So anyway, Rand, fuck. Rand's like, what are you doing? And what are those? Referring to her nipples. He's never seen nipples before. But they're like, lingerie. Kind of opaque material.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And he's like, what the fuck are you doing in here? And she's like, I just want to have a special relationship with the Dragon Reborn and whatnot. And he's like, I don't want to have sex with you. And she's like, that's a lie. Everyone wants to have sex with me. I constantly want to have sex with me. I look in mirrors and I'm like, damn. Fuck, right?
Yeah.
And Rand's
mirror on the wall.
Rand's like, I get it. It's understandable. You're literally the most beautiful woman in the entire world. But I just had a really what's the opposite of sex positive? Is sex negative?
Shame.
I just had a really shame-oriented sex dream. And so I'm not really feeling it right now. And Berylane gets kind of up in it. And it's like, Berylane, no's a no, girl.
Yeah, Berylane has a problem with consent.
She has a big problem with consent. It is bad news bears. But luckily, Rand kind of, wraps her up or something in magic air. And then all his reflections come to life. And it's like, oh, this is fine, whatever. And he has a sword of fire, and all his reflections have swords of fire. And Berelane's in the corner like, what the fuck are you? And Rand breaks one of the mirrors at one point, and then little shards, little reflections of himself come out, just like Matt's playing cards, and they start stabbing Rand, around his ankle, little ankle biters. And he picks one of them up, but then he just, absorbs it. And he's like, oh, damn. This means something I know, but I can't really think about it because of all the blood loss. So then he kind of drops his sword and absorbs all of them. And then he's just sitting there bleeding out. He tells Berylane to get out, and she skedaddles. And then he's just there, and Numb by Linkin Park is playing softly in the background.
I've become so numb. I don't know any of the other lyrics.
Yeah, they don't really matter.
It can just be that lyric.
It's just that repeatedly, yeah.
Become so numb.
So that's the Bubble of Evil. Sorry.
What is happening from you?
What have you discovered in your research?
So I wanted to talk about this chapter specifically in the context of intrusion fantasy, going back to Farah Mendelssohn's 4 categories of fantasy that we talked about in our very first episode, and then have touched on pretty much every week. But this isn't the first time we've seen it, but this is one of the strongest times that we've seen an intrusion set up in the Wheel of Time world, because intrusion, so to speak, is something the mechanics of the intrusion fantasy is that you have the mundane world where magic doesn't exist, and the fantasy world where something fantastical does, and there's a violation of that fantasy world coming into the mundane world. So we see it
when Alice sees the white rabbit at the beginning of Wonderland.
Yeah, and so we see it at the beginning of the series in the Two Rivers, where the shepherd folk are living in a world pretty much without magic, and the Myrddraal comes in, and Moiraine comes in, and et cetera, et cetera. But we definitely see it here because we're seeing a different type of magic, and Robert Jordan does a really good job creating a world where there's magic and still making it seem like this is different and this doesn't belong. So the chapter itself opens in traditional Robert Jordan fashion with kind of a little vignette of what is going on in the setting, but it's an actually really interesting one to set it up because it begins by talking about thresholds. One of the opening lines is there's a bunch of fishermen hauling nets, and they're anxious to get back inside because, quote, the story said evil could not cross your threshold unless you invited it in. That was what the story said, but out in the darkness, ... And so the language of the chapter is setting up two spaces, an inside space and an outside space. So then we have that idea of threshold, which by putting that in our minds is able to create this violation that we have going on throughout the chapter, which is just kind of an interesting literary bit. Tibble is just...
Crying.
Can you hear him?
Yeah, a little bit. Do you want me to let him out?
No, it's fine, because then he'll just do it out here. Tibble, I'm trying to put together a thesis. No, I've lost my place. Oh, and, like, an interesting part about the intrusion is that we get, omens in this chapter. Each of the, bubbles of evil is signaled. It begins when they hear a cock crowing, when they hear a rooster crowing. It's interesting because, of course, we've been dealing with sort of, like, rural societies and a society pre-science, so to speak. So, of course, like, superstition has peppered the story throughout, but this is kind of the first time where we see superstition made real, and so to speak, in, like, kind of an interesting way. Because I think Perrin and Fail first talk about how, like, something like when you hear a cock crow, that signals, like, death or something. So it's kind of like a raven or something.
Yeah, it's just like, interesting because the Shanchen are way more oriented towards omens and a bunch of various, like, future-telling techniques.
Yeah.
Like, they're very into, I think there's instances of, like, palmistry. Tuan is always thinking about birds and what birds are doing.
Cool.
And what that means.
God, same.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. I don't know what the art of telling the future via birds is, but I feel like there is a word for it.
It's not augury. Augury?
Augury? Might be.
Augury? I don't know. That's, I think, just, like, looking at portents and stuff like that.
But she's very into it. But, yeah, it is interesting that you then also have this thing that is still very much, like, I don't know, it's... cock crowing is so rural, like you said.
Yeah.
We have the three who have been pulled from the rural setting, and it's like, how do you have a rooster in tier?
Yeah, exactly.
Randomly?
Like, especially Matt, who probably, like you said, very much is in a fucking basement.
Yeah.
Like, and, like, Rand's in his bed. It's just a very interesting thing, and so it's one of those just interesting aspects of the story. And so you talked about how each of the boys is fighting something that they're afraid of, which is true, obviously. Like, that's kind of the whole idea. Like, they're fighting. It's very, like, archetypal in, like, the Jungian sense of, like, you have to fight yourself, or, like, you face yourself and your shadow self.
Yeah,
or
like,
whatever.
Rand having a sex dream is all fun and, you know, it's hilarious, but it's also, like, telling that he starts his from the position of a dream and just sort of, like, enforces the liminality of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming from that, like, dream space, and because if I'm remembering correctly, like, the Jungian dream space is supposed to be, like, the human...
Yeah, the shared unconscious.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of it. Like, the shared unconscious. And so then we see each of the boys fighting something that they're afraid of that has also become very much ingrained in themselves.
Yeah.
But thinking, whenever, like, all the three boys are together, I always think about something you first told me about the series, about how the boys correlate to the Hindu trimurti of creator, preserver, and destroyer. So you have Perrin fighting an instrument of creation. As much as we talk about the axe as being an instrument of destruction, like, inherently it is a tool, which is something that humans use to create.
A hatchet, you might say.
Oh my god, I'm quitting the podcast. I'm gonna turn out. Goodbye. No! Yes, it's inherently a tool, which is, of course, what is needed for creation. We also have Perrin dealing with his, like, sacred marriage arc, which is the, like, whatever. And then you have Matt, who was, like, the hardest one for me to figure out, because Matt always defies anything. Expectation, but basically, like, it's interesting that, like, you said the face cards all connect to, like, real life rulers in this continent, and so what you basically have is Matt, where did I write it? He's basically being attacked by the social order.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, something that Matt is always against, but Matt, in his role as preserver, has a really interesting relationship to social order as a Robin Hood figure who, like, has problems with nobility, but is inherently folded into nobility, sometimes against his will and sometimes very much with his will, and so he has that back and forth relationship to the centers of power around us, which is very much like a preservation thing.
I also think it's interesting that a lot of the face cards he's dealing with, and I seriously can't remember all of them, but like the Amerlin seat is named, and so is the Andoran Queen, and I think like maybe the Illianer King or something, and all of those rulers by basically the end of this book are going to be out of power.
Yeah.
Like, they're all just done for this world.
Yeah, because Matt is also the one who, he's the only one in this sequence that is interacting with, is it Tyran? Is that how you would say? Like, the people of Tyr. Like,
oh, Terran.
I
always have said
that. Makes sense.
I have no idea.
He's the only one interacting with, the people of Tyr, and, like, they're the ones who've just undergone this, like, incredible thing. And so Matt is the one who sets up kind of like the major theme of the Shadow Reborn, saying that 3,000 years of Terran belief in history lay in ruins and the world had been turned on its head. He wondered whether he had handled it any better. His own world had gone all askew in little more than a year. And so you have Matt coming at it with the perspective of like, yeah, shit is shit out there.
Yeah, it always feels like Matt is the only one with an actual like decent perspective on what's going on, just in terms of being like, this is fucking whack. Like, everyone else just kind of goes along with it.
Yeah.
In a way.
And I also think, like, Matt, in terms of perspective, is the one we see most often interacting with people outside the circle of the main characters. Like, Rand and Perrin's, like, circle of people that they surround themselves with is pretty much goes unchanged at a certain point, whereas, like, Matt is always flitting in and out with, like, new people because he has an addiction to gambling. But
yeah, and also he just moves through the story in such a way. He's also, I think, the one who, since he doesn't have traveling, physically covers the most ground. And yeah, I think probably blow for blow, he's got the most interactions with not just strangers, but also just like the widest variety of characters.
Yeah.
You've got a ton of people who have just like met Matt at least once.
Yeah. This is just random, but going back to the cock crowing, at least at one point, which is supposed to signify death, Matt says when the cards are attacking him, he was sure the cock had crowed for him, which is just like the line in the famous don't ask for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee.
Oh, yeah.
Which I just thought was a little fun tidbit.
Matt also just sort of feels like death is coming for him,
constantly.
Which it is in this book.
Yeah.
Matt is actually going to die in this book.
Dies. Yeah.
Matt dies in this book, more or less.
Yeah. And so you have Matt coming up against the social order, and then, of course, you have Rand's, who's the most obvious, is that he's fighting himself, and he's the driving force of destruction throughout the story. So, interesting.
Like, it's also telling that Rand's interaction just leaves him really wrecked.
Yeah,
just
like,
physically.
Totally fucked. Yeah, like, Perrin's tired, and Matt's, like, shaken up. But,
Matt's
like,
got a little stab
yeah,
on
he's got
hand.
a little stab, but, like, Rand is probably bleeding out in his room by himself.
Rand's just, like, can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Oh, the poor Ale who are standing guard outside his door.
Yeah.
Barrelane comes in. Silence for a little while, then rushes out.
Yeah. Go back in.
Okay, what's going on? Whatever.
The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the actual language of these scenes. There's something in literature called the pathetic fallacy, which I think is a hilarious phrase.
It's very good.
But it means, it's drawing the word pathetic as in from, like, pathos and feeling. And so the pathetic fallacy is is when, like, in poetry you would attribute to an inanimate object that you would, like a feeling or something that you would apply to humans, because, of course, inanimate objects, as far as we know, don't have feelings.
Yeah, but people do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like when we kind of humanize our cars in weird ways.
Yeah. Oh my god, I got in my car the other day, And I was just like, oh my god, I love this car. I was like the weirdest feeling. I was like,
overwhelmed.
Yeah, I was just like overwhelmed.
Pleasant emotion.
By my queer womanly love for my Subaru. I was just like, this means the world to me. It was such a weird. I was like, never have I understood Ronan Lynch better than in this moment.
It's like how when you're a little kid, you like don't want your stuffed animals to know that you have favorites.
Yeah.
It's just like those things.
Yeah.
So interesting.
It is really interesting. And we see that that's like literally kind of like made real in this sequence where like the axe is like attacking Perrin and the cards literally come to life and the mirrors are like sprouting out their actual reflections, and so they are doing things and like, but the language of itself of the book, holy Christ, is doing this on the poetic level where it's saying, like, the axe was behaving like a thing alive. Perrin could almost taste its thirst for blood. I had ones from Matt's, but everything moved as if time slowed. Like, he's using the word like a lot. And so those kind of, like, that language of, like, as if, like, we talked about it a lot in my Lord of the Rings class, because this is something that Tolkien does a lot if you pay attention to it, and, like, my professor said that, like, that as if was a key term for maintaining, like, the rationality of a scene, like, but also, like, maintaining the pathetic fallacy, because, of course, it's called a fallacy, because it doesn't actually have... like, the axe isn't, like, actually thirsting for Perrin's blood, or maybe it is. Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell in these moments, but that as if puts up the kind of, like, barrier where you can be like, oh, this is something weird that is happening, and it allows you to maintain the rationality that this is not natural, like, on a language-by-language level, but it's interesting because those type of, like, language appearances don't happen in Rand's scene. Like, it happens with Perrin and it happens with Matt, but it doesn't happen in Rand's scene, and so you see the rationality begin to collapse because Rand is, like, expecting things like this to happen to him. Like, he's basically at this point just waiting for himself to go mad, so you don't see his language slipping in that way. So, just interesting. Yeah,
Rand's is the most... like I said already, Rand's is the most liminal scene already, and it's just like throwing a whole bunch of weird shit all together, like horniness and shame and also self-loathing and just all these really terrible emotions that are combining in Rand. And we joke about how he's emo a lot, but like he's under a lot of pressure, and these things are really just driving him into a really, really gross place. Like, it's just so sad that Perrin is with Fael, who, like, ultimately they love each other, and Matt is with a bunch of, like, weird dudes who are sort of his friends, but at least he's in company, you know?
Yeah, and he's, like, doing something that he loves.
Yeah.
He's just gambling.
He's pursuing his passions.
Yeah.
And Rand is just, like, alone in this creepy bedroom that's been invaded by Barrelane.
Yeah.
Unwanted, and definitely unconsented, too. So, I don't know. Kind of a sad place to end on, but... Good notes.
Thank you.
Pathetic fallacy, I'll remember that. That's so good.
Yeah, it's a good one.
As soon as you said that about Tolkien, I literally haven't read Tolkien in a decade, but it was like I could, like, taste how he does that. Yeah. His weird, and he does it so, like, dignified and almost Homerian in the way he presents scenes.
Yeah, I know a lot of people take issue with the way that Jurt. Do you know that's what his friends called him in college?
Jurt,
J-R-R-T. Oh, my friend Julie told me that the other day. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm choosing to believe
I hope
that
it is.
If I had a friend whose initials were J-A-R-T, you bet I would call him Jurt.
Hey, Jurt off.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Jurts.
Yeah.
Your jorts.
Yeah. Oh my god, I would love for someone please draw me J.R. Tolkien in jorts.
And a denim shirt.
Yeah,
just
please,
denim on denim.
Please. I will not pay you because I don't have any money, but I will pay you with my love.
It's good enough.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It can't be exchanged for rent. Anyway, I don't remember what I was saying. Something about my weird love for J.R. Tolkien. I just like the way that he applies agency to the physical world of Middle Earth.
He's great.
I think that's interesting.
Well, icon.
Anyway, those were my notes. Like we said, we're trying to get it a little, trying to get a little more literary this season. So I tried. I hope you guys liked it.
I think it was great.
Thank you. I also really hope you like that we opened this episode talking for 10 minutes about the Hatchet series by Gary Paulsen.
Don't tell him that. I might cut it out.
We're getting back to our roots. Our website does say at the bottom, like, if you do not know what Wheel of Time is, but you are also traumatized.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
The hands of Gary Paulsen or whatever.
So terrible.
Yeah.
Next week, I can't remember how many chapters. I think 2.
Yeah, I think we're going back to doing 2.
But we'll just be kind of dealing with the aftermath of the Bubble of Evil. Will Rand bleed out?
Stay tuned!
Will Perrin shave his beard in a fit of...
No.
Anger?
Will Matt stop gambling?
Absolutely not. It's an addiction. He should be at Gamblers Anonymous.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us. We will... we will be back next week. Well, sorry, I was thinking...
we're going on vacation.
Yeah, we're going on vacation this weekend, and then I'll be gone for a day or 2 the weekend after that, so we'll just have a pretty buck-wild schedule. Yeah. But we will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sticking with us. Do you have a sign-off?
First, I do, but first, thanks to Glenna McKenzie for the use of our theme song.
Duh, Glenna.
It's a departure of the album Putting the Taste.
I was gonna kill you.
No, it is original work that Glenna both wrote and sang and composed and did all this stuff because she's super impressive and super awesome, and we really love it. So thank you,
if you're like,
Glenna.
Who's that angel at the beginning of EHR?
Before the
Glenna.
fucking raucous demons.
Yeah, before the psychopaths.
Yeah, that's
start
Glenna.
Cackling.
Yeah, she's the best. So my sign-off is that every year at this vacation that my family goes on, my cute mom, they used to sell them in the general store, but now my mom just, like, buys them elsewhere because they don't do it anymore. You know those little, like, I'm sure you've seen me have them all the time, the little, like, anklets that you tie on?
Oh, yeah.
That have beads, and they're supposed to be, like, a wish anklet, and you, like, make a wish, and when it falls off, your wish comes true. And, like, I've been doing this since I was, like, 7 every year. And so I'd always just make, like, dumb wishes. Like, this year, I hope that I fall in love or make a lot of money. Or, like, whatever. You know, just, like, dumb wishes. But this year, I was like, no. I'm gonna, like, focus my intent and wish for, like, a better understanding of myself. And, like, yes, I was gonna focus my growth, like, my self-growth and preservation. Every time I look at this little rainbow anklet, I'll feel better. This morning, I woke up and Tibble had chewed it off in my sleep. It was just like chewing on it with his little dirty feline mouth with all my like hopes of self-actualization just soaked in his disgusting little saliva. I'm so furious.
Like 127 hours.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I wondered why he was so quiet this morning. It's because he was eating your dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the devil. Okay, I have to go rescue him from prison. Goodbye.